So let's look at it. India's private school and English-speaking urban elite may attract global attention, but they are in the dash. Pay attention to contrast hint words, but the vast majority of Indian children dash government-run primary schools in rural areas. So there's a contrast happening. In 2008 to 2009, rural India dash for more than 88% of India's primary school students, of whom over 87% were enrolled in government-run schools. Okay, this is where we see some of the nation's dash challenges. Pay attention to construction, sentence construction. Some of the nations, right? Indian education system has not achieved strong learning outcomes for reasons that are as diverse. And so again, we have a descriptive word and then we have a synonym hint word as a country itself. Key among these reasons is poor teaching quality, which results from a multitude of factors. Okay, so having understood the context, we know that the reference is about the probably the education system, and they are comparing schools, obviously, right? So let's look at our options for the first blank. India's private schooled English-speaking urban elite may attract global attention. So they may do this, but they are in the minor, major, majority, minority, maturity. So the context obviously is telling me that they are attracting global attention, but I have this hint word, but, contradictory hint word, which means it has to bring out something negative, right? So this is a positive framework till before the comma. Indian private school English speaking urban may attract global attention. That's a positive thing, but they are in the only right word to fit, bringing in a contrast negative meaning is for, minority, right? Minor and major are not in the right form. Maturity is an unrelated word. You can quickly eliminate that. The next one. The vast majority of Indian children dash government-run primary schools. Go to is missing. Follow, they don't follow, again an unrelated word. They attend seems like the right fit. Attended, not in the right form. Past tense, the sentence is in simple present tense. The vast majority of Indian children leave government-run primary schools in rural areas, again does not make sense. So the only logical word to fit the context for blank 17 is option 3, right? They attend. So India's private schooled urban elite, though they attract global attention, they are in a minority. What about the vast majority of Indian children? What do they attend? They attend government-run primary schools in rural areas. So 4-3. Moving on, in 2008 to 2009, rural India dashed for more than 88% of India's primary school students, of whom over 87% were enrolled in government-run schools. So here, we need a word that brings in the meaning of what's the primary factor, right? In 2008 to 2009, rural India dashed for more than 88% of, so primarily, right, when you're saying for more than 88% out of 100%, we need the right word which brings that context. India account for, we need the past tense form. Why? Because we're talking about 2008-2009, not current. So this is not in the right form, right? Arranged, unrelated word, counted, unrelated word, accumulated, unrelated word, right? All of these are illogical in the context. So the only correct option here is accounted for, meaning constituted, right? That's another synonym. If I have to substitute this blank with my own word, I will say in 2008 to 2009, rural India constituted, or primarily, rather than constituted, I would say constituted the primary factor. Yeah. So in 2008 to 2009, rural India accounted for more than 88% of India's primary school, of whom over 87% were enrolled in government-run schools. Let's look at our last two words and blanks. This is where we see some of the nation's dash challenges. So one of the things that you can quickly look at is, if you look at the options, I have tougher, stricter, toughest, simplest, simpler. So it's all in either the comparative form or the superlative form. So obviously, the nations, this is where we see some of the nation's dash challenges, the topmost, which means obviously I need the superlative form. The only superlative form is in 3 and 4. Out of 3 and 4, the most effective word is 3. It's not simplest. How can the challenge be simplest? Right? It's a challenge. So it has to be toughest. Toughest challenge. That's the right adjective. Usually, you don't associate or link off with comprised. Yes. Comprised comes on its own. Comprised, which means consists of. So when you say comprised of, it's very redundant, repetitive. Yeah, India's education system has not achieved strong learning outcomes for reasons that are as diverse and dash as the country itself. So here, we have already an adjective which is describing the country, and we have a synonym hint word and. Right? And, or, these are all synonym hint words. Which means I need a word that has the same meaning as diverse. So from the given things, what can be the right word? Also, I need the same form. This is an adjective form. So I need an adjective which has the same meaning as diverse. Divine means more to do with godly intervention, right? Is that what the context is talking about? Is that the meaning we need? No. Simplified. No, it's almost a contradiction, right? It's an antonym. Similar again is an antonym. Difference, yes, maybe, but it's not in the right form. If it was different, which is the adjective form, right? Difference is the noun form. I can pick 2. So obviously it has to be option 1, which means what? Again, those of you who don't know what nuanced means, nuanced is nothing but different. Distinction or difference, right? So looking at the options, even if you're not familiar with the meaning of this word nuanced, right? Exactly, Deepkana. That's what I was trying to say. Even if you don't know the meaning of nuanced, you can easily eliminate all the other options because divine is an unrelated word. Similar and simplified are simplified also is an unrelated word. Similar is an antonym. Difference is not in the right form, so it has to be nuanced. Because divine is not a synonym of diverse. Diverse and is your synonym hint word, which means I need a word that shares the same meaning as diverse. Divine is not that word, right? You can go ahead and explain or describe India as divine. That's a different thing. But in the context, I am looking for a synonym, a word that shares the same meaning as diverse, and that word is nuanced. When you say something is divine, right, you're almost talking about it in terms of, being very godly. That's why I said godly intervention. When you say something is divine, godlike, representing or being something very delightful. You can say something is divine if you're very extremely delighted about it. You're feeling extremely pleased about something, right? Knowledge is divine. Yeah. So they say knowledge is God as well. So I can say, let's say you go to some performance, right? So you can say, the concert was divine, right? It was a divine concert. Divine is not, it's an adjective, right? So you're describing something. So you can say, I had a divine time at my friend's place, right? So what you're basically saying is, I had a really delightful time, right? An extremely pleasant time. So depending on the context, divine can give you different meanings. Yeah. See, nuanced also means distinct. In this context, right, when you say something is distinct, so there is a very clear distinction. In that context, what you're saying is, you can easily distinguish from all other countries. So India, in this context, they are talking about how differently distinct it can be from other countries, given the situation that has been described in the paragraph. Yeah, so that's why nuanced is appropriate here, because it brings in the meaning of distinct, how diverse or how easily it can be distinguished from other countries because of these reasons, because of the education system. Yeah. So, like I said, we are looking at challenges, right? When you say challenges, and then you have the superlative form also. The, right? Remember, the superlative form always has the definite article. The best, the biggest, the toughest, the prettiest, right? So having said that, we rule out all the comparative forms. Stricter, simpler, tougher. The nation's toughest challenges, because challenges is your clue word again, right? If it's simple, then it won't be a challenge, right? That's why it's toughest. Noun form, right? Here we, like I said, we need the adjective form, so it's in the right form. This is a noun form. Here we need an adjective form because diverse also is in the adjective form. So if we have one of Mohit, then it will be not challenges, challenge, right? Because you're talking about one. One of the nation's toughest challenge. But obviously, when we have one of the, it usually is followed by a plural noun. Okay, 17th one, here we are, the vast majority of Indian children. Let's look at each point, okay? So basically, they're talking about the English-speaking urban elite are in the minority. So what about the rest of them? The vast majority of Indian, where do they go? What do they do? So we have government-run primary schools in rural areas. So here, if you look at the options, it's talking about some sort of movement, right? This is my action word. So when I say go, what is missing? Go to. The preposition to is missing. So option 1 is ruled out. They don't follow, right? Here, they're not following the government-run primary schools in rural areas. The vast majority of Indian children, where do they attend? If the English-speaking urban elite are in the minority, what about the rest of them? What do they do, right? So they attend is the right thing because they're talking about in rural areas, what schools do they attend? Attended again is not in the right form. It's in the past tense. The sentence is in the simple present tense. Look at the preceding sentence. It says may attract. Simple present tense. They are in the simple present tense, right? Leave again is an unrelated word. The vast majority of Indian children leave government-run primary schools in rural areas. Doesn't make sense. Like I said, the right meaning that the context is giving is in 2008 to 2009, rural India dashed for more than 88% of India's primary school students. So what is it saying? In these years, these many people, which is more than 88% of India's primary school students were enrolled in government-run schools. So it's talking about a specific number. Counted is not the right word, right? Accounted, on the other hand, like I said, constituted or represented or fell in this category of more than 88%. When you say counted, what do you mean by that? That doesn't make sense, right? I can say the count was so and so. A number you can give. But here we're talking about a percentage of students who enrolled in government-run schools. So counted is an unrelated word if you ask me.